And go. All right. Welcome to the Gauntlet of Weekly Updates.
Awesome.
Channeling my inner Max.
Right.
He's gonna like bust out of the chest, you know. Inner Max. Once out.
Max has been giving lessons on projection.
The end of week update.
Seriously, we need to get you for vocals in the CSE death metal band.
Oh, God. We know how that goes, the band thing.
The band that was banned.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it has been a busy week here. The pedal is continuing to be on the floor, and that means good and bad. That means we've got a ton of new stuff in. That also means that this weekend's build may not be as intensely stable as we would like. It's the kind of thing where, you know, we fixed most of the bugs with what you saw in the last test and added new stuff that has new bugs. And that's going to be kind of realistically, that's the way things are going to be until we, you know, declare it formally Beta 1.
Never let it be said it's not exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. Lots and lots of new stuff going in, mostly on the engineering side this week. Also, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. Let's just get the token green in there. Single biggest thing, probably just to be aware of, there is a test going to be going on this weekend. I'll let Tim say what he has to say about that, because he's been the one wrangling it.
Yeah.
I mean, the most important thing is we need your feedback in the forums. We need to know what's working, what's not working, so that, you know, we can fix all of this weekend's bugs and have a whole new crop of bugs next weekend, because no one likes seeing the same bugs every weekend.
So what we've got going on this weekend is we're going to be letting betas into Wormling, assuming it doesn't crash between now and the end of the stream. We're still looking for one of the remaining server issues we had that caused us to cancel the test last week and 3 weeks ago. So we've already sent an email out to you guys. We started an impromptu this morning, and we're just going to roll into a weekend on Wormling with betas. All the directions are on there, but we're just looking for basically if you can't get into the server at any point, let us know. And really, hopefully have put this one to bed this time. I don't know if you've got any commentary on that.
Yeah, some of the proxy desync stuff, I think Mark has a fix almost in.
Yeah,
that one's still going to be out there for this weekend, but
well,
he may work really late and we'll slip it in like Saturday morning or something.
We got in a sort of a band-aid that's an approximation of the actual fix. So hopefully that has solved the issue, and we'll get rolled into a bigger, better fix later. What we're working on right now. But so our hope is that we have actually fixed it this weekend. That we had that same hope last weekend, so. The problem with this particular bug, if you're wondering why it's taken so long to knock it out, we've put this server Wormling online for like a week at a time.
It pretty much only shows up on a beta weekend.
Yeah, it's
we can't make it happen in the office.
Yeah.
We need all of you to attack the server to make it happen.
We've put bots on it. We've put IT and alpha on it. We even did a beta Thursday last week. I think maybe even a beta Wednesday. It was fine through all of that. Like, we hit Friday. The weekend is upon us. Folks are wrapping up for the day, and then we just run into problems. So, actually a running joke now that this problem only reproduces when we let betas in on Friday night. So anyways, it's been a bit of a difficult one just to track down so that we can fix it. We think we have another fix on. We hope we have another fix for it this weekend. Please come join us, help us either figure out if we fixed it or not. I'm not sure. We had another test that we were talking about doing with ITs and maybe alphas on prep. I'm not sure the state of that one, but that might also be coming out. and it'll be a roll-up of all the cool stuff we've put in the last week or two in terms of buildings. We had to turn those off last week because of a bug, so those should be back on. Manual aiming got turned off last week because there was a bunch of issues, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But that should be turned back on, and a bunch of rendering stuff for OIT, a whole bunch of new sound effects, basically all the stuff that we're going to cover in our top 10.
Yeah, this is like the what's going to be on Wormlane for betas is pretty much what we had in the office this morning. So
what's going to be on Wormling for betas is what we had 3 weeks ago.
Okay, sorry.
What's going to be on prep is what we had Bleeding Edge this morning.
Okay, sorry.
No, just making sure.
I'm getting eager. Let's get on to what we've got, what we've accomplished here in the office. Those of you with Hatchery or Wormlane prep access will see this weekend. Those will be seeing on Wormlane once they're a little more stable. Biggest thing this week is a further iteration on manual aiming and for archery and eventually siege weapons. They are the same kind of thing. It's mostly just a lot of little things on feel. It's a lot of little intangible things about smoothing it out, making the camera not jittery. The tracking works off a single push button instead of holding a button. Bunch of things like that. Arrows damage buildings once again, which isn't really. I don't think that was really a manual aiming kind of thing. Just interaction of projectiles and buildings is back to where it should be, and that's an all-purpose core gameplay thing, where Rob was doing some building work. So
I just have other words to say about aiming since I'm literally typing this up right now, and I want to make sure this is very clear. Just for people who are watching the stream, who are probably going to be in testing and seeing other people, we're looking for a very minimal scope on this aiming mechanic. There's a whole lot of other things around it that are either bugs that we haven't found or bugs that we're completely aware of.
Animations aren't attached to it at all.
This is not about the whole, like, I'm an archer, I'm running around, I'm doing all my abilities and everything. This is just get yourself into the correct aiming mode and hitting a button to fire an arrow and walking around and just see how that feels.
Are we going to have the questionnaires go out with this email? Like we've been talking about putting together some questions.
Yeah, I'm writing that up right now, and we'll see where that goes. Sure. But my thought is people are not going to, there's a lot of people who aren't going to read what has kind of turned into this much text of like step by step how to test this. If you don't do that, you're going to find all the other things we haven't done. We haven't done those things because we just want to know, hey, CSE, should you just keep going in this direction? Does this feel good enough that we should actually work on other bugs around this?
Right.
So just full disclosure, this is a minimal, very fine line we're getting you guys to look at.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, so to a lot of that is to say the full life cycle of animations and sound effects and VFX and some of the nitty-gritty details in terms of like the entire archery system, we're not there yet. This particular system that we're talking about is just the aiming part of that in terms of how it feels, and if you hop in the game you'll see it. There's some cool aiming trajectory stuff that's in there, how that feels. There's some interesting camera work that we've done, and we're just trying to get a feel for that before we decide which of these bugs we necessarily need to fix, because if we don't like the particular system that the bug is in, there's no point in fixing the bug. So a lot of that's just going to be like, how does it feel when I go into aiming mode? How does the camera feel? How does the trajectory look? Do you like that? I think we've got some questions we're working on put together that'll give you guys some targeted questions related to that. But that's the gist
Targeted?
of it. Huh.
Targeted questions? So, next big thing is just, Tim already kind of touched on this, just the all-around stability improvements. Many things that were broken in the last time you were on Wormlane are less broken now that they're on Wormlane.
Yeah. And there's been a couple of parts of that. Some of that was specific to like our code where we needed to fix bugs, and another thing was just sort of how we had some of our server back in, some of our databases set up, all of that. Bad things were sort of hiding in the shadows there, and we brought them to light and fixed them so that just in general, like our network infrastructure is stronger than it was a week or two ago.
Yeah, we had fun times with an account database going down last weekend,
Yep.
and
Fun.
yeah, that was
exciting times.
that was exciting times because Tim was in a car and I was in the middle of my wife playing a show, and we're like, Mark was.
Yeah, so I was driving down the road with my phone Bluetooth to the car, giving Mark directions for how to fix servers.
Yeah, that was a not fun weekend, but it helped us improve our infrastructure on something that should have failed over automatically didn't, and now we're better.
Yeah. So yeah, there was both code stuff, hopefully fixing this issue that kept people from connecting to Wormling when it was online, and also some network / opsy sort of things that kept Wormling from coming online at all when we had outages.
Yeah. So internally, Dave did some work on our Patcher backend. The original goal and design of things was that someone could just here in the office hit save on an art asset or whatever, and in less than a minute they would see that like live pop into a running client, and that less than a minute had crept up to like 5+ minutes just as the game had gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So Dave has done some work on that, and we are back down to hit save, see the thing. That's it's not a thing you guys get to see because but for us on our iteration and cycle time, that's a huge improvement. I know all of the artists are much happier with that.
Because just if we've got make a change, wait for it to hit the server, look and see if we like it, decide we don't like it, or we want to do something else with it. Like Dave's time said that went from about 5 minutes to 5 seconds. So if you add 5 minutes to every time one of the artists hit save and wanted to see it in game, it was just a giant pain in the ass. And so that has gotten hugely faster. And so it's just great to be able to see our changes, hit the game real quick, iterate on them, and make games.
Yeah. So next thing is ongoing work on animations and extending that out to hook into like effects and particles from the skill system. I'm gonna get up and do my Andrew dance.
Oh boy. Okay.
So before you'd see some things like all right, so here's my prep, and I'm gonna wait for the amount of time that this skill says to prep, and then I'm gonna play my attack, and we've reworked that, so maybe I'll slow down my prep but not slow down the entire animation, and just lots of work on timing to try and make things look and feel awesome. So that's going to continue, but I'm getting to be less and less involved in that as, sort of coming out of that hole and fanning out. And I've been working a lot with Gabe on handing some of this stuff off. He's been taking kind of the system of, you guys are able to create skills by combining lots of skill parts together, and then there's this system that just sort of pulls those skill parts and intelligently figures out, hey, this is the animation that best represents those. And working with Gabe, we've been able to generalize that into doing more for the particles, doing more for the sounds, getting everything, just the way, getting a consistent system so that combat's going to show all the things that we want it to show. So that's,
Well, I was just going to say, digging into that a little bit, I think we've talked about the tags last week and maybe a little bit before that, but a lot of this is, decorating this skill as, fire and a spell, or this thing is slashing and an attack, and adding some of the data about this is a sword, or this is an axe, or this is a hammer, and all of that gets cooked into a tag set that allows us to pick the appropriate particles or sound effects or animations or animation set, so that your guy can do aggressive things or defensive things or axe things versus shield things. And so Andrew and Gabe have been working together and made this system so that sort of works for most of the art that we want to put on the client, and I don't know if there's anything we haven't gotten to yet in terms of like client art, but we had a bunch of different systems that sort of got pulled together into one unified generic system, and then Andrew's been working on handing that off to Gabe so that he's not the only one that knows how this works, and other people we can parallelize that and it happens faster and all that.
Yeah,
goes.
you know, like I had to write the core, but now that it's out of the core, it's, you know, hanging the individual fruits on the tree. Like,
Yeah.
lots of other people can do that, and you know, I can be all up in Tim's face now.
Doing it.
Love you, Tim. So I'm surprised this is on Tyler's list. World's
Tyler may have been really excited about
yeah.
it.
Tyler was happy about this. Scott and Ben were really happy about this. World's silliest debugging tool. If you on Hatchery, you can type /anim nameplates1, and then your nameplate will be hijacked to like display all this information about what animation you're playing, and you know, people have been having fun with that. So I should mention on this, you know, we've made a big deal about kind of building our UI out of standard web technology. Actually, the entire nameplate is a little mini web page, and so what I'd really like us to do, and no particular time on this, is opening that up more for modding, so that you know, people can put arbitrary blobs of HTML attached to characters as they're running around, because it's all web stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it really is like the nameplate and all. It's just like a little div with you know, a line equals center.
And a little bit of JavaScript that takes like your name, your guild, and your title and formats them into a string.
Yeah, so I'd like to build that out into both more debuggable and more moddable. There's a ton of potential there that I'm looking forward to seeing what some of the Mod Squad people come up with. So, I'll take the next one.
Yeah,
you take the one after that.
Yeah.
So George has continued his work on order independent transparency. He's just been sort of in the iteration loop with Mike Crossmeyer on effects, and they've been, you know, it's pretty much you know, either one of you is working on something to show the other one, or, you know, it's been a lot of them just back and forth and sort of nailing down all the stuff. And the OIT system it's working. It's come together nicely, and it's about adding new blend modes and fancy stuff to effects, making things shiny.
It was a little bit dubious there for a bit,
Yeah, it
and
was.
then we got some bugs knocked out of it, and we were like, oh, this
Okay,
is it.
You know, it got it to a point where, like, okay, this is all significantly faster. So I was like, okay, but that looks wrong, and just iterating on those edge cases, and as more and more of the edge cases got knocked out.
And that's like what Andrew was talking about, was like, Andrew would find something that would look wrong and either go set up a test case for it or have Cross set up a test case for it, and then give it off to George, and then George would fix that and be like, oh, and also now we can do this other thing, and send that back to Cross, and then Cross would be like, oh, well, I did this cool thing, but then this other thing. And there's been a lot of really cool back and forth there that it's gotten us both a bunch of bug fixes, a bunch of cool new features, and a bunch of like really cool interactions happening there. So it's been fun.
Yeah. So you want to talk about what Christina's been doing with crafting?
Yeah, so crafting many moons ago, Hernandez put in our like version 1 of crafting, and you guys might have seen that. It worked with the Vox, and you could put together alloys and all of that, but it was sort of really rough prototype of the system, and Christina's taken that over and done some really cool stuff. She's been working really close with MJ on you know, all the formulas and the rules, and getting together the ability to make alloys and refine substances. So a lot of those systems are starting to come into place. We're still missing some of the data in terms of, like, you know, what is iron, or what is the formula that affects the way this alloy works. So some of the data parts of that are still coming in. A lot of the user-facing parts of that are still coming in, but the back-end systems for a lot of the crafting stuff is coming online really quick, so that you can get resources. You can get substances from like our resource nodes. Christina's been working with Gabe on that a little bit, who put the original resource node system into place. So that all the parts necessary to have a really flexible, really dynamic, really interesting crafting system is actually starting to come together, and we're super excited once it's ready to show off. And I guess I can roll into Banes and Boons too.
Yeah, most of the back end's been done for a
Right,
while.
exactly.
This is mostly on UI.
I was trying to remember how long ago that was, but it's been a little while when Matt spent a bunch of time getting the Banes and Boons in a place where Ben could start putting together the vast majority of we had a big spreadsheet of all the different Banes and Boons that Ben had designed by race and by faction and by class. And so we just sort of went through and figured out all the hurdles we needed to do, and Matt just spent like a month digging through all of those hurdles and making a really cool system that consequently, like, they share a system with our skill system, and so all of the cool stuff that he made that we could do in Banes and Boons, we can now also do in our skill system and vice versa. So
Yeah,
that was
it's-
really, really cool.
The difference between a Bane or a Boon or a like ongoing active effect like a dot or something is really just how does it last forever?
Yeah, when it gets applied. So that all happened a while back. What's been happening recently is we've been getting that glued up to the Patcher character creation stuff so that you can actually go in and pick them, test them, exposing that to web interfaces so that our modders can go out hopefully and query those. And we've got a build of the patch client that we've been using in the office. We haven't pushed it out to anything you guys can get to yet. We've got a build of the patch client in the office that the people in the office have been playing with and actually putting Banes and Boons on their characters. There's still a little bit of data that still needs to happen. There are lots of tests and sample Banes and Boons. But just testing that full stack, and that's coming along really nicely too.
And also just, because that is, again, that's all just sort of web interface. There's a good chance that's going to be up on the website too to play with.
Yeah.
So won't even have to run the patcher to build a character.
Right.
So, on to the art. Michelle did a second pass on Siege Engines. Maybe some of you saw her stream earlier this week, and we've selected a design to start with. It's cool. I hear it's cool. Actually, I was busy debugging things.
Yeah, I got dragged into that a little bit. Somehow, like, there was a bunch of people standing around Michelle's desk, and someone was like, "Hey, Tim, we need more people over here."
Like, I wish I had time to watch the art streams, but...
So I got pulled into the aftermath of that, which was us doing a review of a bunch of those and sort of picking our favorites and identifying the things we liked and didn't like about a whole cross-section of concepts that Michelle did related to Siege Engines, both great and small and portable and stationary. And there's a whole bunch of really cool art things happening around that. And so if you want an idea of what some of those look like, when we send this out, there will be a link to the stream that she did that on. You can check it out.
Yeah. Also, on environments, Dion has been doing a lot of just all-purpose decor, grass, weeds, little scrub things. It's those. These are the things that don't necessarily, they don't get a gold star on the box or anything, but that little bit of clutter is what makes worlds feel alive.
Yeah.
And
It's the difference between walking on a naked flat plain and walking on like a grassy hill that looks and feels like a real place and not just like a couple of triangles in a virtual world.
And yeah, I mean, I hate to brag, but for the first couple years of this project, I was like, man, I would walk by someone's desk while they were streaming some other game and I'd be like, man, I wish our game looked that good. And we're getting to the point where I'll walk by someone's desk and I'll see that some game on their screen and I'm like, damn, we need to copy that for our game, and then I'll realize, wait, that was our game. So the environments are definitely starting to come together, starting to be happier and happier with how those look. So all kudos to the environment art team and also George for the tremendous job that he's done on making the lighting in our environments look good. So, I'm happy.
Speaking of which, you can take that next one.
So, VFX tagging and OIT. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I've already covered. Like the system of how, we put together everything about your skill, everything about the skill parts you've assembled and come up with a good animation clip. We extended that system to Gabe extended that system to drive choosing good particles, and there's going to be more and more work done on that. And Mike's been working with George, so it's coming together. There's going to be there's a little more work to be done on that of actually syncing up particles and effects with exact frames within animations, and not just like the major like D&D level phases of the skill, and that'll be done probably by Monday.
John got a new Arthurian spear and polearm model in this week. Just ongoing. You guys may have remembered a few weeks back we landed a big overhaul of a bunch of item stuff. We even brought in people to test it. Hey, we changed a whole bunch of item stuff, make sure all your items work. And there was a very small sampling of items there. Like each class had like a two-handed weapon, a sword, a shield, maybe a bow, and some arrows, and like a substance. And so the art team has continued building out. Every time we do stand-ups, there's some new weapon that they're working on. So they've continued to build out all the different weapons and axes. And so this week we got a new spear and polearm, which look really, really cool. We updated the items, and we're pushing those out to your characters. Should show up automatically in your inventory. These ones may not, since it's just this week. I'm not sure if these have made it in game yet. But basically, every week, you should generally see some new items appearing in your inventory, and just giving us more options in terms of cool-looking art, but also for your character development, so that you can get spears or hammers or whatever playstyle you want. So that's all super cool for making a flexible, interesting game.
And they play different.
Yeah.
The timing's all different.
And we talked about anim sets and the tagging stuff for that earlier, right? Like your guy holds his spear and shield like this, and he'll hold his mace up here, and a two-handed weapon comes like this, and so all of that's been getting hooked up too, and it's super cool.
Yeah. And last one, all right. We padded this out to 13 with the same thing multiple times. Yeah, the tagging system for the animations is driving.
So the last one is
sound.
There's a bunch of cool sound stuff that's happened.
Yeah.
One thing that might be relevant for you guys that are testing. Last time you were on prep, if you were able to get onto prep, if you were an IT or alpha and able to get onto prep, we had just put in a bunch of the new sound tagging stuff and sort of rushed out a bunch of sounds just so that there would be sounds in the game. So we've had the last week to get more sounds in there and get the existing sounds sounding better and timed better and stuff like that. So there should be a whole bunch more sounds on there than there was the last time we did a prep snapshot.
Yeah. Also, stuff like footsteps should hopefully be in there next week. The return of footsteps. So yeah, that's our top 13 for the week, and here we are, half hour in, so we do have some time to take
Gauntlet of Questions.
All right, so
pick this up so we can.
And remember, you guys have two engineers. Andrew and I can't talk a whole lot about design. We can't tell you which class is going to be the best and why. We can't tell you which substance is going to be the best and why. We're also not really artists, though Andrew does some cool things with art. So he can talk the tech side of art, and ask tech questions.
give us your tech questions, folks, and while you're writing them up, I'll play the intro.
Who are you? Turn the stove off. Did I hear it up? Do you like my shirt? When are this? Is this my spleen?
Now it is time to answer some questions.
Okay.
Start with question number 1.
Go for it.
How's the Seattle office space going? Landlords and negotiations. first round of things has been signed. There's a second round of things in negotiation. I'm still optimistic that we can have an office space by April 1st. Not a joke.
That's going to be the lamest April Fool's email ever. We got an office space.
Ha ha ha.
No, really.
Matt doesn't have to work out of his basement anymore. Ha 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 ha. I know he's anxious to get out of his basement. I'm anxious. Like I really, really want to go out there, but there's not like a good place where I can work with the whole team. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. Right now the only place I can see the whole team is on the monitor.
Yozaro asks, what's the general status with the NVIDIA tech stuff?
So we've largely been pushing hard on gameplay. There's we've got some NVIDIA tech in, and it's just, yep, that looks good and it works. The main thing that we still want to pull in is the environmental lighting, and I think once George gets the order independent transparency stuff wrapped up, that'll be one of his very next things to work on. I've gotten to a point where I don't really get to be the graphics programmer anymore, and honestly, if your lead programmer's writing the pixel shaders, there's probably something wrong with how you're running your project, or your project is very, very small. So that's George has been nailing down the OIT because we feel like particles and effects are higher priority. The volumetric light is gonna come fairly shortly after that, and we love NVIDIA. A little bit of Skunkworks at home that I've been playing with, looking at how I can best integrate the VRWorks code that they've done, because that does neat stuff. VRCube in a way that doesn't make you nauseous is still a ways off, though.
Badalude asks, have you seen how WaveWorks looks in other games? Would it be better to create ocean simulation in-house, performance and visual-wise?
WaveWorks looks good. We looked at it and we felt like it was not necessarily the exact right fit for what we were doing. Maybe for the Viking longboat expansion.
That wasn't a promise, to be clear. Swazi asks, how is the Ryzen working for you at home, Andrew?
Caveat to anyone thinking of taking the Ryzen plunge. I had some grief because I went out and bought memory that was too fast. So be sure to check for the particular motherboard that you've gotten, look at the memory compatibility list, because there's some things where, well, it supports this speed of DIMMs, but only if you only put 2 in, and if you put 4 in, you have to downclock them, and so I had some pain there, but yeah, otherwise, it's good. It is admittedly not the absolute top of the line for single-threaded gaming performance, but for an all-around creative workstation, for the price, it just can't be beat right now.
What if you were playing a game that was highly multi-threaded?
It'd be pretty cool then.
Arcane Cloister asks, is someone standing outside of the CSE office selling flat caps?
Max is also wearing his cap. I am wearing this. I'm wearing this for St. Patrick's Day. This is my fiance and I went to Ireland a few years ago for a vacation and toured all over the country. And I didn't take a hat because I thought, it's Ireland. It's just going to be sort of overcast and gray the whole time. Everyone who lives here has pale skin and freckles so that they can absorb as much vitamin D as possible from the lack of sun. And of course it was just it was just the brightest, sunniest, 35-degree centigrade heat that you could imagine, and I was like, my bald spot needs help here. So I bought my Irish tourist cap at I'm gonna say Ladies View. It's a really great little mountain pass, and there's this little tourist shop selling Irish wool things. I was like, all right, I'm buying my Irish tourist hat. So this and my green shoes is my ode to St. Patrick's Day.
Odilvik asks, maybe you can both answer this, I don't know. Were you writing more new code or rewriting old code this week?
I've been in the land of Linux this week, so it's been more about getting packages and DNS set up and all of that than code this week.
Yeah, I think the only person who's just like writing large swaths of new code right now is Christina, and most of us are like, let's add this one little thing onto this structure, add this one little thing onto this structure, tweak this a little bit. So that's where we should be for the most part. Colin's been doing a ton of new code, which is one of those things where if he gets it all working perfectly, you're not going to even notice it. It will just be that behind the scenes, the game is going to scale horizontally a lot better. We'll be able to just accommodate more server load, but more players by turning on more servers without anyone noticing that anything weird is going on, and it'll all just be beautifully seamless.
Yep.
Kick the Awesome asks, regarding the UI modability, will we be able to customize enemy names / nameplates with it? Are we also able to customize all colors?
So right now, that's just, there's one little, we talked about it earlier, there's one little HTML and JavaScript snippet that controls basically all of the nameplates. So yeah, the same code that would change your nameplate will also change your enemy's nameplate. Though, as Andrew mentioned, we're still working on sort of presenting that to the users in a better way and all of that. I'm not sure exactly how moddable it is right now, but our goal is to get there.
I'm going to roll back to Odilvik's earlier question,
Oh.
because I do know the answer. In the middle of February, Umbar noticed that preparation times on a lot of abilities decreased drastically. It seems the decrease was caused by lower prep times on weapons. What was the reason for that change? It just feels better. You push the button and you want something to happen. And, we didn't really have a good sense of that until we had animations that came online and where the times of the animations were synced up to the ability. It was just, well, whatever, like this ability can be fired off every 3.5 seconds, whether the damage happens 2.5 seconds into that or 0.5 seconds into that didn't really make any difference. But then once you actually saw the animation, it just, I pushed the button and I hit the guy. And so we moved the prep times up to just, get the damage to go off at the same time that it looked good in an animation for the damage to take place.
Grintar asks, have you guys even started to look at anti-script or anti-cheat solutions for the inevitable bots / scripts / hacks that plague most modern MMO launches? Launches.
That's one of those things where, I go more for secure by design. We've designed a lot of things around making that hard to do well. And so we're not actively looking at, how can we block this thing? It's, well, how can we just make it not feasible to do these kinds of things in general?
There's also a bunch of different problems here, right? Like scripting and automation and hacks. Those are actually like 13 different problems that all get rolled up into the exploits that players use bucket. And so each of them sort of has their own solution. And some of those we've already got stuff in place for. Others, we have plans for, or and some of those we've said it before. Like some of the stuff, there's 20 of us and 7 billion that aren't us. So it's a war of escalation, and with enough people and enough motivation, it becomes a difficult problem. But We've talked about this a lot in the past. There's a lot of games they believe what the client tells the server, and they just act on it, and we've put stuff in place so that that's not the case. Sorry guys, we assume every time your computer tells our computer something, it's lying. and so we've put stuff in place that handles that. And sorry, I know I cut Andrew off a little bit.
Go ahead.
But and so some of that stuff we handle. We handle some of these problems in certain ways, like running physics on the server. If your client tells us our server, I'm on this side of the wall, and then suddenly tells us it's on this side of the wall, some games they would just believe your client. Our game says, no, you ran into a wall because we're actually running physics on this guy. Similarly, Andrew did a demo in the very early days of the game.
The
where,
legendary Big Blue Beef.
Yeah. Where he just made our frost giant, which is affectionately dubbed the Big Blue Beef. He just made our frost giant fly. And again, a lot of games, the server would just say, "Oh well, the client wouldn't lie to me. That's code that we wrote." And what they don't know is that the players have manipulated that in some way, be it on the network layer or on the in-memory layer or whatever, to lie to the server. And so our physics says, "No, you can't fly because gravity is a thing." And so we've handled a bunch of hacks in that way. Other stuff like automation, there's a lot of introspection a lot of games will give you in terms of this is the thing's position in the world, this is your position in the world, and using that you can usually map stuff out pretty well. We've made a conscious decision that once the game launches, we're just not going to put a lot of that positional data into a way that is user-facing. And so, move from point A to point B becomes far more complex when you can't affix a number to point A and point B. And so we've also made some decisions along those lines to make stuff like that more difficult.
Yeah, there is another pass of work I'm gonna need to do on the client of, sort of the hardening the client itself against cheating, of sort of scrambling the memory.
Right.
Not keeping floating point values naked in memory, but that's that's something that we did on Camelot and on Warhammer, and something that we'll just take our pass on doing that sooner or later.
All right. Thentanos asks, how have you two contributed to the fun factor of this game? Any plans for making it even more fun?
That's the question. Is what is fun to you?
Yeah. I mean, outside of I have a lot of the stuff I do is like a lot of first pass stuff. I do a lot of prototypes to make sure that a system works with what we want to do, or get it in, and then we can make it awesome later. But I also chime in with Mark and Ben a lot when they're having design discussions. So though a lot of people around the office do, I do it a little bit more than a lot of folks. So I help with the design a little bit, or put my 2 cents in, and Ben and Mark can do whatever the hell they want with it. But also I was one of the guys on the Rehab team, so the new ability system, I helped with that a lot, but I've since handed that off to other folks, like I have a tendency to do.
I'm gonna say my biggest contribution to fun is my tendency to be the chaos monkey here, of no, let's just drop this thing in and see how it interacts. Yeah. And I to me, seeing how that interacts is fun, and seeing what players come up with is fun. And finding a way for Donnie to launch himself into the air is fun. That's I like seeing, I like creating things that players will do unexpected things with, and sometimes I have to be a little reined in on, no, if he can do that, then it's going to be exploitable, and he's going to make it suck for the rest of the players.
But that seed stuff, right? Okay, this was fun, this was cool. How do we do this in such a way that isn't problematic to the large lifespan of this game and our player experience? How can we get the fun parts out of that without having the bad parts?
Right.
And you don't know that that's even a thing until you try it.
Badalud asks, how are the new VFX going? Are they sexy?
We talked about them like 6 times in the update.
Yeah, go jump.
All
Just
right.
rewind.
Go jump in and look at some. So Dave is working on a bunch of new features about, not just like things moving around, trailing particles, but actually leaving streaks. It's going to be kind of a refractor distortion shader going in soon. Couple things to like make particles align with their velocity better, so that you actually get like streaks and stuff.
I've heard discussion over here in the artist corner about weapon trails recently. I don't know
Yeah.
where those are at, but
That's-
we're talking about them now.
That's that for the most part is on the distortion side too, I think. Yeah, so it's coming together. There's more tech coming. Part of the reason we did the OIT now was to have the right foundation for that. So here, full tech nerdery time. One of the things that really drives our performance is being able to batch things together. So every time you have to tell the video card to do this thing, and then do this other thing, and then do this other thing, each of those things has a lot of overhead. So if you're able to take those 3 things and merge them together into just one thing, it runs a lot faster. And so by doing order independent transparency, that lets us just take all the transparent objects and blast them at the video card in whatever order. So, before, if we had like some fire and some smoke and some refraction and stuff like that, it'd be like, all right, switch to the smoke shader, draw a bunch of smoke, now switch to the fire shader, now draw some fire, now switch back to the smoke shader and draw some more smoke, because all the transparency had to be sorted back to front. Whereas by doing some really clever math, it doesn't matter what order things get drawn in, and so it's possible to just be like, all right, just draw all the smoke in whatever order, draw all the fire, and the fire that's in between 2 pieces of smoke will just sort of will come out looking good. And so that lets us use a lot more variety in what shaders we're using on effects without suffering any performance penalty for switching constantly back and forth between shaders to maintain a sorting order on them. So that's it's kind of the philosophy of how we're doing things. Like, we're willing to take something that makes the game run a little bit slower in a pure static scene all by yourself, if the impact of adding more players and more particles and more buildings and more spells and more grass, as long as the impact of adding more to the scene is low, slower in an empty box is fine, because it's all about how we can do really well in the worst case. So.
Since we have mentioned VFX a bunch throughout this talk in the context of the tag stuff that we've done, I do believe in general, like, the animations and sound are still a step ahead of where we are with VFX, because we're still settling the OIT stuff a little bit. So a lot of the cool stuff that we can do in the VFX probably won't be on prep this weekend for you guys to look at. There will be some VFX, but we're still waiting for some of the OIT stuff to settle before we get a bunch of that content actually in your faces.
All right. So JB has summarized and clarified a question from Vesir1 and Masahiko Kobe.
I didn't catch that name. What was it?
Masahiko Kobe.
Okay.
I got it. You challenged the master. How will you prevent UI mods from being used to adversely affect gameplay, such as showing player positions in distance, or marking healers with a big icon or outline, or automating things like target selection that trivialize skill in PvP?
Well, as we talked about earlier, your UI just doesn't know anything about position data, so it can't cheat with data that it doesn't know exists. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that was in there, but that particular thing, like, we made that decision for this reason.
Yeah, it's the same thing of, we just turn off nameplates beyond a certain distance. The UI does not get a chance to touch the players that far out.
On the network stack, one of the things we're talking about is either not telling your client or obfuscating your client information for like people that are invisible or not in your line of sight. So if somebody's hiding behind a wall, just not even telling your client about it. And we may have to do some dark magic so that we can tell your client about it, but it doesn't know that we've told it about it. But a lot of times, like, most games, if a dude is hiding behind a wall, the server tells him he's behind that. The server tells your client he's behind that wall, and you just can't see him because of rendering reasons. And that's how wall hacks work and stuff like that. We're actually looking at ways we can just
occlusion on the proxy, basically.
Yeah, we're basically looking at ways where we can just not tell your client about it, and so there's no way your client can't cheat with data. Like I said, your client can't cheat with data it doesn't have. Data celibacy.
Also, I'm just gonna sneak up here and say, merch is coming. Maybe not this exact merch, but that continues to creep slowly towards a reality again.
Cool. Yozaro asks, are the VFX handled on GPU or CPU?
Yes.
All right.
I
moving on.
mean, there's there's a whole chain of it starts off on the server, driven by the skill system, and I just fixed a VFX bug that was in the middle of some C# data structures in the skill system on the server of, how it was picking things, and then all the way down through. There's a lot of, just playing it, how it attaches to characters and all is on the CPU on the client, and the ultimate drawing, obviously. Well, if we draw it, it's on the GPU, but...
Though it did used to be far more on the client on the CPU than it is now, right?
The OIT got rid of a lot of the client-side stuff, or a lot of the CPU-side stuff. But the actual animation of, hey, this particle moves like this, is that's CPU-driven still. And it's probably not going to change, but never say never. George likes to find ways to put things on the GPU, but at the same time, most scenes were GPU bottlenecked, so having that work stay on the CPU actually makes us run faster.
Anytime you have a CPU or a GPU that's going unused, George is a little sad.
Yeah, but for most well-balanced systems, I mean, you can put together something with high-end workstation chip and integrated graphics. You can put together something with a Celeron and a Titan, and create something where one of them's going to be unbalanced. But in general, for most balanced scenes, I think for most sane balanced configurations, I think we're in a pretty good place on our CPU versus GPU balance.
All right. Let's see.
You guys got 5 minutes. Get good questions in.
5 minutes. Okay, well, this one's directed at Andrew, but I think it's fun for both of you. Very serious question. Are you like Neo? When you write code, do you see the code, or do you see the finished product in the code?
I don't even see the code. Yeah, it's
See
just...
blonde, brunette.
it's all about... Yeah, a lot of times I'll be like, I want something like this. I want something that works like this, and I have a vague feeling that this part is going to be needed to make that go, and I'll just write the parts that need to be done and build on that, and just grow my way towards the solution as I'm building it. But it's always about, what do I want it to be at the end.
There's a little bit of both for me, and I think maybe Andrew meant it without saying, like, a lot of times when you work on a team, your code is there for the compiler to turn into stuff, but also for other programmers to read. So you even if you're seeing the end product, you have to be cognizant of your code just so that somebody can come in and work on it after you. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So, you're always working towards the end goal, but at the same time, you have to be cognizant of, like, what's your code going to be used for? Yes, it gets turned into stuff that runs on the server or the client or whatever, but it's also something that in turn someone else works with, and if your code is illegible, then you'll get stabbed in your sleep.
usually by me. I'll be like doing
Andrew
code.
will wake you up first.
Yeah, that's true. I want to look in your eyes. I want to see that look and know.
Odilvik has an involved question. Disregarding graphics, sound, and databases, do you have an idea of the total amount of code that has been written both client and server side? David Braben said back in the day that 20-ish years ago that most games had 22 kilobytes of underlying code. How much has that changed?
Yeah, oh God. I don't know, how much are we going to count like all the middleware and, you know, the plumbing, a mutable object graph?
Yeah, what happens when your code write codes? Do you count the code that your code wrote?
Don't know.
I think we're probably past 22K.
Yeah, we are very safely past 22K in code, but we are, you know, I mean, there's PhysX and Chromium in there.
Yeah.
You know, that's most of the lines of code are still those two things.
All right. Well, looking for a final awesome question to close out the stream with. So if you guys have something, preferably that both these guys could have an answer to,
Don't disappoint Max.
that would be great.
Don't
Don't
regret it.
disappoint me.
My face is tired.
Splash some caffeine on it.
Let's see. Yozaro asks, how have you been following how other engines are doing for workflow or tech ideas, etc.?
Not as much as I'd like to. I've not been able to really be sitting down and like actually trying to build things with Unreal 4 or you know the way that I would like to have been able to. You know, we kind of had our idea and we ran with it, and you know, so kind of where we are is a little bit of a, you know, based on where things were a few years ago, this is my idea of where things should go, and they and you know, other people may have taken it in a different direction, but you know, we had to run with what we got. So I'd like to, you know, kind of after this project sit down and compare the solutions we came up with versus the solutions other people came up with, and see what we can kind of learn and fold back into the tech for you know, the infamous next project, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I do. You know, I try and keep abreast of other games, that are either specific in my interest space or sort of in the same space as Camelot. You know, so I get a little bit of a cross section, but you know, I feel like we're doing enough of our own cool stuff with tech, and I'm not really a client guy, so a lot of that isn't on my radar. It's you know, if they're doing something really cool, like if somebody, I haven't seen it yet, but if somebody comes out with a really, really cool game where they're putting 2,000 people in a fight on screen, I'll be interested in it. But there's only one or two other people doing that, and I think we're doing it better than them. So there's that, and then, you know, outside of that, there's enough time that we spend making our own game, that when I get home and I'm not making this game, I'm either keeping my progeny alive or spending like an hour playing whatever my favorite game of the week is.
Cool. Well, seems like a good place to end that. Do you want to mention testing over the weekend again?
Yeah. We'll do a recap. We've got IT Alpha Betas happening on Wormling. It's the same build you guys have seen the last couple of tests. We think we have the server issue fixed. So we just need you guys hopping on there and letting us know if you're unable to connect to the server. There should have been already an email that went out for that this morning, and there may be another one going out just in specific to, and this thing is going on for the rest of the weekend. I've got to check with Tyler. I don't know. Hey, Tyler, are we doing a prep thing this weekend? We're talking about test stuff in the wrap-up.
Yeah, so far nothing's blown up, and I'm just writing up docs. The gist of it is, I mean, you probably have already said
I talked
it.
about Wormling a little bit. I wasn't sure about prep because that was a little bit less concrete.
Yeah, well, prep is only a little less concrete in that it is all the changes from this week, and it is going to have it is going to be affected by fixes that are being attempted on Wormling.
Right.
It's going to be affected by the fixes.
But specifically, we're planning on doing a prep this weekend.
Yes.
Unless it blows up in the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, nothing's blown up. I want to get that out and get people just
Right.
looking at all the changes.
Okay, so prep is open to.
So we're
yeah.
probably going to be doing an IT alpha,
Yeah.
though it's not open to them yet.
Yeah.
We're probably going to be doing an IT alpha on prep this weekend with bleeding edge stuff as of 10:30 this morning. Bunch of bug fixes, bunch of all the stuff we've put in this
buildings
week.
are back.
Buildings are back. Manual
We
aiming
talked
is
about
back.
manual aiming.
Yeah, we talked about all that.
There's a bunch of stuff that's changed around animations that is. Unfortunately, Andrew just did a fix, which would kind of help things. I don't know if you guys
It's a
want to
very.
mess with that.
No, we're going to
Okay.
cherry pick that one. Not a problem.
Okay.
It's very, very self-contained, obviously.
Yeah, Scott immediately was like, "Oh, this is so much better." So there's a whole bunch of things with stances, so that your character should be in a stance that looks correct. A lot of all the sounds for the events.
all the top 10 shit we just talked about. A lot of that's on here that wasn't on there last week.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's going to. We'll see what happens. If everything falls apart and it just becomes too hard to keep up over the weekend and we're not getting anything out of it, we will stop the test. Hopefully, everything stays up as a secondary test to what's going on Wormling, because some of what's in prep is affected by what we're testing in Wormling. So we're kind of just like last weekend, getting 2 for 1. If anything, this build has a little bit less testing than we got in the previous build.
So I did a little bit of the mom talk last week in terms of testing. So I know you guys have seen the same crap on Wormling. You beta guys that have been hopping on Wormling, I know it's been the same stuff for the last couple of tests. But us putting this bug to bed means that we're more confident about the stability of our build, and we don't like showing you guys stuff unless it's stable. So as soon as we can put this issue to bed, which we need your help testing, then we can bring some of the cool shit that's on prep that you haven't seen yet over to Wormling. So please hop on Wormling. Please help us find this thing, whether it's there or not.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. We know it's not always super fun, but it lets us get to
Yeah,
the
if you guys jump in and do these tests,
You can tell he's the parent.
Well,
Like,
I said
Go in and break it.
Yeah.
Fuck shit up.
I actually said this. I think you sat with me last week.
There's
yeah.
our R-rated part.
I did the same thing. I said this last week. Like, our ability to progress forward and show things means people need to actually get it in test. This isn't someone else will do it. We will know Monday morning by how many comments. And please, if you don't find anything but you did check in, just tell us what happened. Hey, I jumped in 3 times over the weekend for 10-15 minutes apiece, ran around, did what you asked, this is what happened, or nothing happened, whatever. Just the fact that we see that people are doing this just makes us more confident if nothing does occur.
Yeah, look, just the Wormling test is a lot of logging in and logging out. Like, go get your Switch or your Wii U and throw up Zelda, or go get Overwatch, or whatever game it is that you're playing.
I wish I had a Switch.
Yeah, get wrecked, nerd. And throw those up, and then just on the side, get your computer logging in and out like every time you die, because it's Zelda and that's every 10 minutes.
Yeah, in all honesty, like, what he's saying would be very helpful. Like, if you're sitting and watching a movie on your computer and you can pull it up every 20 minutes or just whatever, it's a fairly mindless test. It really
Download
is.
the
It's
latest
easy.
episode of Walking Dead or whatever. Just while you're doing shit that you're going to be doing because it's a weekend, also log in and out of the game.
Yeah. And then what
No,
this
you
gi-
can't close the stream yet. We're still talking. You get your hand away from the mouse.
Then what this will give us is we have just there are so many changes that have occurred in the
We're
most
adulting,
recent,
okay.
in the alpha IT
I'm out.
test.
See ya, Andrew.
You guys clearly brought me in at the wrong time. It's
Yeah,
when you
you-
guys are done.
Y'all be adults. I'm out. I'm gonna make games. I'm gonna have fun.
Anyway,
Go put some caffeine on your
just
face.
to end this out, yes, get in there and test. We have so many changes. I think it's been posted a couple of times when it really shouldn't have been in other areas, so that like some of the betas have seen some of the doc. It's like 20 pages. It has all different kinds of information on how to test it. There's just
There will be a quiz. No, there won't be.
yeah, and all of this is also getting, like we said a couple of months ago, this is all putting a lot of these bigger systems together and moving into the game mechanics. So that's why you hear us talking about animation, VFX, sounds for combat, crafting, and the Banes and Boons, and more ability testing. And I mean, right now, Scott's got things looking better on the animation side than they were yesterday. So
Or this morning.
or this morning. So if betas, if you want to see that, please help us break this.
Or not.
Or not. I mean, hopefully nothing happens.
Show up, make an appearance, contribute.
And the point is, if nothing happens, but we've got like no feedback in the forums that you did go in and test, we can't be sure whether enough people showed up without sitting there and keeping an eye on it every minute.
Right. So that's our soapbox. 2 tests happening this weekend. Betas on Wormling, alphas and ITs on prep. Please show up, play around with stuff. Tell us how you feel about the manual aiming. Tell us if you can't get into Wormling.
Yeah, look at he's swinging a giant axe over there. The timing's all improved.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Join us tomorrow. Also, we're going to have John possibly streaming 3D modeling, and
Let's
then,
just double check real quick since I haven't checked in
we'll
with
be
him.
hosting in the evening stream building in Cube with Swazi.
Hey,
All right.
Hold on one second. John?
Don't you touch that mouse!
Yeah. Are you still planning on streaming tomorrow?
Yeah, but it's not. It's a special stream.
It's a special stream.
Pants
Possibly a
optional.
special
So
stream
we need to
tomorrow.
do a little bit of
Okay.
setup, right? Before okay.
All
Special
right.
stream.
Thanks for joining us. Bye
Bye.
now.